It is time for some stories about stuff. Stories about mermaids. So, mermaids. Lovely, lovely mermaids. What do we know about these creatures, apart from what's in the classic story by Hans Christian Andersen, The Little Mermaid? Which, if you don't know the original story of that, is nothing like the Disney film. It's brutal, and we will be covering this in a later episode. I'm really looking forward to that one. Now, we all know what mermaids are. They're half fish, half human. And in certain stories, of course, that is taken literally. That's how they look. They have fish tails and human torsos. You don't need me to tell you that. It's a mermaid. Everybody knows what a mermaid looks like. It's a fish woman. But did you know that in certain European folk tales, mermaids actually had legs? And they had sort of bluey, grey, greeny scales. They had gills as well as lungs. And they looked more like fish people rather than half fish, half person. It's kind of reminiscent of the deep ones from the classic story A Shadow over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft. Might even be where we got the inspiration for those creatures. I don't know myself. Another variant of mermaid from folktales are the type that have legs on land and a fishtail in the water, which that one was featured in the not-so-classic film Splash. This type of mermaid may well be the subject of our first story. This story is told to us by our very own ancient mythical being, Grumpy Bob. This is the Stranger in Zennor.
In the Cornish village of Zennor sits the church of Saint Sonora. Legend has it, hundreds of years ago, the church would be visited by a beautiful and well-dressed lady. On her occasional visits to the church, the villagers would become enchanted by both her looks and her incredible singing voice. The people of Zennor knew nothing about this lady and often wondered why there were such long intervals between her visits. And considering the scores of years they had been seeing her, how did she remain looking so young? The strange woman had taken a liking to a local man named Matthew Truheller, who just happened to be the best singer in Zennor. One day, he followed her after church and was never seen again. Neither was the mysterious woman. One Sunday morning, some years later, a ship had lowered its anchor off Pendower Cove, and a mermaid had come alongside the ship and called to the captain to raise his anchor as it was resting on her door, and she wanted to get inside to her children. The sailors immediately pulled up their anchor and sailed away, as they believed that seeing a mermaid at sea is a bad omen. When the villagers of Zennor heard the story of the mermaid living near Pendower, they came to the conclusion that she was a stranger who would visit their church and had enticed Matthew Truheller away to be her husband.
Mermaids and singing goes hand in hand. There's lots and lots of different stories about mermaids having beautiful singing voices, as well as being attracted to singing. There's actually, I was very surprised in research for this episode. I was very surprised at how many stories there are of mermaids visiting churches to sing in a choir. It's a market that I did not know existed. One of the oldest stories of mermaids actually talks about them singing to attract sailors to kill them. That comes from Greek mythology. It's the story about the sirens, which originally in Greek mythology, sirens were actually half bird, half women, as opposed to half fish. And we always picture mermaids in the ocean, but freshwater mermaids also share the spotlight. In Great Britain, tales of freshwater mermaids are actually older than the tales of their ocean-dwelling counterparts. The oldest tale of a freshwater mermaid being that of Grendel's mother in Beowulf. In the animated film that came out, she was more of a sort of gorgeous ogress, played by Angelina Jolie, of course. But yeah, this tale was first told in the 8th century, and she was actually a freshwater mermaid. These mermaids were said to drag people to the bottom of their lakes, ponds, rivers and pools. And that brings us to our final story of this episode. And this is the story of the mermaid of Ercall. This is going to be told to us by the lovely Niamh Macey. And this story has a bit of a twist.
It was either 1778 or 1779 when two unnamed men were travelling to work one morning. Whilst passing a pool, they saw a mermaid sitting on top of the water. They almost ran away in terror, but then the mermaid spoke with such a sweet voice that the two men instantly fell in love with her. She told them that there were huge lumps of gold at the bottom of the pool, which she would give to them if they waded in and took it from her hands. The two men entered the pond, and as they made their way towards the mermaid, she dived down in the water and returned, holding two huge pieces of gold, one in each hand. The two men swam over to where the mermaid was sitting, and as they were reaching out to take the gold, one man spoke. In fact, he swore out loud, and followed his curse word with, "Isn't this a bit of luck?" Upon hearing the swear word, the mermaid let out a loud shriek and jumped back into the water, taking the gold with her, and was never seen again.
I love that story. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably asking the question, what was the swear word? What was the exact word that man said to freak out that mermaid? Well, after lots and lots of research from myself, the question remains unanswered. As is the case with most folk tales, there's lots of different versions of each story, and none of those versions actually says a specific word. It's just the man swore, or he blasphemed, because there are tales that say that he committed blasphemy, which is what scared the mermaid away. Now, the idea that freshwater mermaids hide treasure at the bottom of their ponds is an old British tradition that goes past mermaids. There's lots of different folkloric creatures and mythological beings that hide treasure. This is something that we're going to cover in another future episode, which I've actually started writing that one today, so that one should be out soon, to be fair. Now that brings us to the end of this episode. It was a fun one, and I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much for joining us on this one, and of course thank you to our storytellers today. It's not very often that we can get Grumpy Bob out of his cave to come and talk to us, but he likes to tell stories. He often talks in riddles, and he hides treasure as well. So yeah, it's very hard to coax him out. You need a raw steak. There's a certain ritual you have to do to summon Grumpy Bob. But we managed it, and he read that story. And of course, thank you to Niamh Macey. You may or may not know this, but Niamh has her own YouTube channel, which the link will be in the description to this episode. She talks about lots of different things, from books to astrology to fitness, but mostly, and most importantly, she talks about her own experience of living with autism. So I very, very strongly recommend giving Niamh's channel a little visit. As always, you know what to do if you want more. That's the dog. It's the dangers of having pets and wanting to do stuff like this. So, where was I? Well, yeah, that liking and subscribing. If you want to, do it. If you don't want to, don't. It's entirely up to you. It'd be nice. But also, if you're interested in anything else that we do, this series is a part of the Fly By Pants projects. For more information on that, you can go to flybypants.com and you can see every single show that we do and all of the different projects. So, yes. And if you'd like to be involved in any of the projects, you can get in touch by emailing andy@flybypants.com. So, that is everything from me. Thank you very much. And as always, till next time, take care.